Welcome to the Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and this is Davey Boy, and this is the Cafe Racer Plus. Next to it is the Cafe Racer Classic. So I rode this with Union Atlas, Ride Fuse. I got this in a pretty decent amount of conditions, but I mainly wanted to ride this at groomers because I've gotten the Cafe Racer Classic in a wide variety of conditions, everything from waist deep powder to ugly groomers to perfect groomers, and spent a ton of time on this. I own this 59.
I rode this Cafe Racer with my Burton Ion boots, Union Force bindings, and then I got it out on some perfect springtime slushy groomers, and I also got it down some nice slushy off-piste terrain as well.
This wide-ass Cafe Racer Plus works for my specs. You wouldn't think so with size 9 boots, 185 pounds, 5'10". There's a lot of taper there, and I think that's what makes this work for my size. That's what I like about Korua boards. You should ride this a good bit wider than you normally do.
My size 12 boots were able to engage this board edge to edge very quickly. It could have been a little bit bigger.
And when it comes to the shape, this is very tapered, very directional, very set back on board. Not so much on side cut, which is good, but it's not like the pencil and the dart where they want a posy stance and they want you to drive off that front foot more. With this board, you can set it up any way you want. And that camber profile, there's a lot of extra camber here in comparison to most of their float camber boards in Korua's line. But it still has a good bit of early rise and it's not full on camber, which is definitely needed with a aggressive board like this. It's still not easy to skid a turn because it's a big ass board, but it's better than it would be if it were full camber. So advanced to expert riders who really want to rail a turn, this is your board, and it feels consistent underfoot in all conditions. Really tracks well, really 1 foot and flat base as well. And both the Cafe Racer Classic and Cafe Racer Plus have that same feel underfoot, except for when we talk about the flex.
All right, so the flex on this Cafe Racer Plus, whew, this thing is stiff.
Oh yeah.
I'm really putting some torque in there, and that is a stiff dogger. See the nose? That thing's stiff too, no surprise. And then, predictably, the tail, that's as stiff as it gets.
Shades of ultra stiff. And this one's been used a lot more. This is my board. I own this and love this and ride this all the time, so it's been broken in. It's gonna be a little softer than it would be out of the wrapper.
Yep, you heard it from him. So here is the flex on this Cafe Racer. Still pretty stiff. The nose, a little more playful, and the tail, absolutely stiff as all could be.
There is just so much more pop and energy with this board. It's just so potential, ready to go kinetic. It just wants to, but this takes a good bit of work to butter. It's more doable than you would think for the flex that you saw, but it's still a lot of work. And ollie power, both these boards take a lot of work to get them to spring. Even the Plus took some work, but when it did, it popped harder than the Cafe Racer.
Yeah, I liked the pop on the Cafe Racer Plus a lot. It was so springy and dynamic out of the turn. When you locked it in, it boosted you out into that extra gear.
And when it comes to speed, if you want to point it, you still want the regular Cafe Racer. It's damper. It's a little more quiet when you really pick up high speeds, especially when conditions are not perfectly smooth. When conditions are perfectly smooth, the Cafe Racer Plus is a little better because it has a faster base. And this base on the Cafe Racer Plus is really glidey, really great for long traverses, keeps its speed very well. It's up at the top of the class. The Cafe Racer, the base glide is very good, but it's just not at the level of the Cafe Racer Plus that we've found on snow. Then you talk about uneven terrain. This does really well. I would say, like, if they just wanted to make a Cafe Racer Plus, you'd be like, oh yeah, this is pretty damp. It's got a little bit of chatter, a little bit of crankiness and hard uneven snow, more so than the Cafe Racer. Cafe Racer's great in micro bumpy hard snow. Maybe not the best of the best, but upper tier. And then soft uneven snow, soft bumpy snow, micro bumpy snow, the Cafe Racer just kills it over the Cafe Racer Plus. That's when I started to feel that feedback because there just isn't as much dampness in the ride. So when it comes to edge hold, both these boards do an amazing job with not having any real disruption in the side cut. They grip really well in hard snow without grabbing it all in softer snow like powder. Yep. Sometimes disruptive side cuts can feel a little sticky there, and neither of these do that. Now let's talk turning and carving. It's one of the most special turning experiences I've had this year. I took this out, perfect groomers in the Cafe Racer, perfect groomers, Union Atlas, same boot, same run, same turns, same everything. This Cafe Racer Plus just took me off guard the first couple turns because it was so dynamic and so energetic. It initiated a turn so much faster. It almost threw me off my game at first because I just wasn't expecting that kind of acceleration and that kind of spring from start to finish. And then I would get on the Cafe Racer, and while that does not have the dynamic spring of the Cafe Racer Plus, it's still just one of the most amazing turning experiences. And when the conditions changed, you know, by like 10:30, I was enjoying the Cafe Racer better because it's just so damp, but it's so close. This early morning turning experience is special. You don't have to set it up posy. You can set it up any way you want, and any kind of weight through the turn works really well with this. But I loved initiating off the front foot, driving for a little bit, and then transitioning center to back when I'm carving hard across the groomers or circle carving. But you could make powerful down the line S-turns, narrower S-turns that are more closer to a straight line and really drive off that front foot, and it allowed you to do that as well. So pretty cool. And when it comes to powder, I didn't get the Cafe Racer Plus in powder, but I got the Cafe Racer, which has the same shape, the same setback on board, the same nose, same tail, same everything, just different construction, slower base. Yeah. And this Cafe Racer floated like a champ, so I didn't really need to test the Cafe Racer Plus. I know it's gonna float incredibly well.
This Plus was really good in powder. Like I said earlier, it just like floated on top of the powder with that extra smooth base really well. It made the powder feel almost like twice as light.
So overall, this board gets often overlooked in their line, but every time I get people on the Dart, the Pencil, and then the Cafe Racer, almost everybody prefers the Cafe Racer for carving and for turning. They like the Dart and the Pencil a little better in powder, but overall, this is the groomer board. This is the best one for that. I am really torn between the Cafe Racer and the Cafe Racer Plus. Usually it's a pretty clear delineation of which board I like the most. When it comes to Plus versus Classic, I usually favor the Classic because I don't ride in clean, pristine conditions all the time. And this Cafe Racer Plus didn't have that common chatter that most Plus boards, Ultra boards do. This pop, this faster bass, I can't decide. I can't decide which one I like better. So it really is a toss-up. It comes down to personal preference.